I'm Shivani Gupta, and welcome to the Ask Shivani podcast. I believe that one of the best presents that you can give yourself is time to be able to sit down and ask yourself some questions. I believe that the quality of the questions that you ask yourself will determine the quality of your life. Welcome to the Ask Shivani podcast. I get to have as a guest Tom Cronin today. I have heard about Tom over the years. I've had friends, clients, and colleagues that have talked about work that they've done with Tom. And so it's so wonderful to have him on the podcast today. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He actually spent 26 years in the corporate sector, in finance, as a broker. And he found that he really wanted to help individuals and companies reach their optimal potential by removing stress from their lives through meditation and coaches. And so for the last number of years, and we'll dive into some questions with Tom shortly, he's really been embracing meditation as a stress management tool and been helping thousands and thousands of people and around the world to teach them how to meditate, how to break through their blocks, and how to transform their lives. He's spoken on stages across the world, including countries like Mexico and Bali and the States, KL, and of course, Australia, where he is based. And he's worked with some of the top blue chip, top ASX companies all around the world as well, including in Australia, certainly CBA, Commonwealth Bank and Qantas, Coca-Cola and Fairfax Media. He has raving reviews. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Welcome, Tom.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me along today.
Yeah, thank you. I've heard so much about you. Would you take us through, Tom, some of your journey? And I guess along that, the main thing I always like focusing on is your big highlights, but also your big lowlights, because often they're your most transformational moments. So what have some of these been for you that have got you doing what you do today?
I guess it started back, when I entered into the world of finance, where I was trading on trading markets, doing swaps and bonds for international markets, international banks. A lot of my clients were people like, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Citibank, plus some Australian banks, CBA, Westpac, ANZ. And I was facilitating and executing trades for them on the global markets. And it was really exciting. I didn't really feel that that was my career path, but I entered into that at a young, naive age of 19, just trying to find some money before I went and did a university degree. But before long, I went really into the culture and the lifestyle of the late 80s, early 90s of that finance market. And what that led to was a lot of imbalance. I didn't realize it at the time. I just thought that was part of the lifestyle. You do lots of drinking, lots of late nights, lots of drugs. And the universe is really good at trying to guide us and direct us in directions that we're meant to be on. Let's just call it our dharma or life purpose. But I was very good at ignoring those signals. And so I just kept going along that path of doing lots of hedonistic, narcissistic sort of things in that industry. And I was getting a lot of signals like anxiety and depression and panic attacks. And I just ignored them, thought that was kind of part of life. I didn't really understand what was going on. I just normalized to living that way, being constantly stressed, constantly overwhelmed in these sort of quite dark and unhappy states. And this kind of exacerbated until eventually I had really quite a dark period in my life, and ultimately culminated in a nervous breakdown at the age of 29. I was quite a wreck. I couldn't go to work, had mental health leave, was put on suicide watch and seeing psychiatrists and psychologists and doctors and on pharmaceutical drugs, and things were really kind of quite bleak at that time. I was really sort of struggling to see any light at the end of the tunnel, or sort of questioning whether I wanted to really go on with life. But it was in that time I came across meditation. It was really quite an interesting time where I just was sitting at home watching TV, and there was a documentary about a property developer. And a very small part of that story was that he used meditation, and there he was in a pinstripe suit meditating. And that was like a real epiphany for me. It was like a light bulb moment, and meditation wasn't something that I'd ever come across in my life. So it really sort of triggered a reaction in me, which was like this curiosity and a fascination with wanting to find out more about that. So that was a real starting point into my journey into meditation and mindfulness and Eastern philosophy. And that was really a big shift. I overcame a lot of my addictions, the anxiety, the depression, and that sort of melted away. And I went back into the industry, back into work, back into the same job and the same clients and the same company. and continued on there for 16 more years. So I had quite a long standing 26-year career in finance as a broker, but the sort of latter phase of that career was with meditation and not having the same sort of stress response. And then eventually I decided to leave and start teaching full time.
Yeah, wow. I love how beautifully but succinctly you just explained the really dark times and how this, the universe sends you a little signal. And as you said, you ignored them for a while and then you listened to that. And now you're doing this, this full time. And I guess, my next question, Tom, is I'm always really curious around when challenges come your way and, now you're running your own business and you're helping thousands of people across the globe. So there'll be challenges there anyway. But when challenges come your way, what are the tools or processes or rituals? Like, what do you use? And maybe seeing that I'm speaking to a meditation teacher, maybe you do that. But would you take us through when challenges come your way, small, medium, or large, and how do you combat that? How do you deal with them?
Yeah, no matter how enlightened we are, or what sort of tools and techniques we're using, we will still face challenges. And life is this constant stream of unmet expectations and uncertainty and changes and shifts and twists and turns that we don't expect. And so one thing that obviously helps is meditation. It gives us greater adaptive capacity. And one of the things we're seeing in the world is the need for greater adaptive capacity. So we're seeing the need to continuously adapt and change because the rate of change is progressing. And if we only go back 50 to 100 years and look at Nan and Pop or great-grandma and great-grandpa and see the level of change that they had to go through in their life, they had the same job, lived in the same place, and there wasn't a lot of adaptive capacity required. That's why life was, you just get up, go to work and come home. Whereas these days, we're seeing the rate of change progressing so quickly. Even our phones need to have an update button on them every 6 months or so. And we're having to constantly grapple with things changing and evolving. And if we don't increase our adaptive capacity, yet we're asked to increase our adaptive capacity, we see this big gap opening up, and that's what causes stress. So when challenges arise, meditation helps us to have greater adaptive capacity to see this sudden requirement for change or a challenge and having to move through that, but then having greater ability to adapt to that requirement. So meditation plays an integral role, and rather than waiting for the need to meet a challenge or the need to go through a challenge and then start meditating, to preempt that and have that as a daily exercise that allows you, when the challenge arises, you've got the ability to meet that. But the other thing is to intellectually shift our relationship to challenge and shift our relationship to crisis. And this is the big shift that I went through, was that not seeing crisis as something that's punishing you, not seeing a challenge as something that you're a victim of, but to sit in that challenge and sit in that crisis and ask, how is this supporting me? How is this helping me grow? How is this somehow, as uncomfortable as this is, there's a lesson, there's a message, there's something for me to learn in this that's going to make my life better and make me a better person. And that was a big thing. So even now when things are rising in my life that are a bit challenging, it's like, how is this supporting me? How is this helping me grow? How is this guiding me in a way that's going to actually improve my life in some way, shape, or form? And that's a huge shift that we can go through when we're going through challenges and crises, because then it really allows us to adapt and to lean into it rather than repel back from it. And it's that's a big thing that I teach my clients to do.
And Tom, obviously with the pandemic, that would have obviously affected some of your work. I know it affected my work and millions of people around the globe. And so when you look at where you are now, and I'm not sure whether things got reset for you, and I certainly started to go, okay, well, what do I want to do and what do I want to do more of and less of? What are the future things for you? Like when you look at whether it's a 3-year or 5-year or lesser of a time frame, what sort of things do you aspire to, perhaps both in business and yourself personally, particularly coming as we navigate through the pandemic?
Yeah, definitely working less. That's a big one for me. No, look, I'm really excited. I've just announced a teacher training program. I'm getting a lot clearer about my business model. The pandemic was a bit of a recalibration, I think, for a lot of businesses, and start to really assess. And we're seeing a lot of businesses pivot and change and adapt because of circumstances that have changed. And, we're constantly looking at those successful businesses are always evolving and growing and learning and changing. And so for me, we've got a few retreats coming up, and what we underestimated that, in particular our Melbourne retreat, which last year and the year before was sold out, and we had full house and people was oversubscribed. And this year we're finding the numbers are really low for signups. And so I was asking around and doing some research as to looking at, we've got a challenge here. How do we get around this? What are the challenges with this, and how do we find a way through this? And what we found was that people in Victoria, after 2 years of lockdown, simply don't want to take a week's holiday and go on a retreat in Victoria. They want to go to Bali and Vancouver, they want to go skiing in Aspen, and they want to or go on holidays in Greece and have beaches in Italy rather than spending time here. So you have to adapt. You have to think, okay, outside the box, and what do we do here? So for me, going forward 3 to 5 years, we're really looking at focusing on less of diversity in our product range, and focusing on one teacher training program, teaching meditation teachers how to teach meditation, one launch of our Zen Academy, which is a group coaching program for conscious leadership and helping people set up their conscious leadership businesses. So have those key pillars, one in the latter half of the year, one in the former half of the year, and in amongst that, some one-on-one coaching clients and some retreats and some corporate trainings, and that's pretty much the bee's knees to our business model.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love the fact that you're doing teacher training. I see lots of great yoga studios add that as their offering, and I think that's great. You're sort of passing that buck. That's great to see. And so it sounds like, I know we were speaking just before we hopped on and started recording for this podcast, you were talking about your morning ritual. My next question is really around your own wellness. When you're helping so many others get well and look at their meditation and look at their rituals around meditation, do you have daily, weekly, quarterly, yearly rituals, or all of the above? And, what are some of the things, Tom, that you do for your wellness? Would you take us through some of that?
Yeah, on a daily basis and a weekly basis, there's definitely things that are critical, and, they're just completely locked in, they're unconditional. So my morning meditation and afternoon meditation are big things. Journaling is a big thing. I go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. So I really like that grounded exercise of using weights, particularly when we're doing a lot of meditation. I find weights are very grounding for me. I do sauna. I like to sweat. So I do iceberg sauna 3 to 4 times a week. I do yoga classes 3 or 4 times a week. So this is kind of like my key components. And it's a very holistic approach. What I eat, what I move, how I move, how I stretch, how I strengthen, how I, replenish with fluids, and all that sort of stuff is very, very critical. What I read. So that's a weekly type of structure that I make sure that I get a lot of boxes ticked as far as my health and wellness. And I'm really a big believer that we must walk the talk and really embody physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on all levels. We really want to embody inspiration. If we want to be inspirational, then we have to represent something that's inspirational. And for me, that's critical as to looking at all areas of life. My relationships, my health, my wealth, all of that sort of stuff is going to be key. Then on a more sort of extended level, I like to sort of go away and have some solitude and silence. I've only just started adding in once a month. I want to have one 24-hour window of time with no phone. So I've just added that in. So that's going to be a monthly thing, that I'm going to have one day a month where I have at least 24 hours with zero phone. And that's usually when I go away to be in a forest somewhere. So usually I like to have time away from friends, family, clients. I do a lot of coaching, a lot of talking. So having solitude and silence is really important for me. So these are sort of things that are critical for my journey and sustainability in the work that I do.
Yeah, that's amazing. And a lot of the different listeners and a lot of questions that I get of people are like, do you schedule it? So do you just go, that's the priority, so that comes first, and then I will fit in my coaching clients, I will fit in my teacher training and other things around the things that are really important for me?
Yeah, my calendar is really important. So my coaching clients book their own calls in, but I set that schedule in Calendly. I use Calendly. And so usually my Monday mornings are free, but today I made some exceptions, but usually I block out Monday morning. So I really like to start the week with some structure to my week and getting things clear about the week. And Friday afternoons I have off, so no one can book in my calendar on Friday afternoons. Wednesday mornings are completely clear because that's more of creative stuff, setting up more programs and sort of social media and creative outlet. And so I do compartmentalize my day. My day between 1 and 3 is completely blocked out, so no one can book in my middle of my day, because I like to keep that free. I like to have naps and go for swims and saunas and have some Tom time. And then my mornings are always free up until 9 o'clock. So that really is just a sort of a sacred space till 9 a.m. where I like to really set up I have quite a long morning routine, which includes yoga and breath work and journaling and reading and meditation. So it can be this morning I think I went for about 2 to 3 hours. So I like to have a nice long drawn out morning session.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I recently went to a retreat where we had a breath worker came in, and I thought, oh, this is good. A lot of people are talking about breath work, but it was really quite an extraordinary session. So I'm in the process of trying to work out, if I've already got a ritual that's 45 minutes and with young kids, like how do I just bring in 2 or 3 minutes of breath work into that ritual and doing that. So I'm always fascinated and inspired, Tom, where you go, yeah, just block out a couple of hours. I'm like, yeah, that's what I need to get to. That's like the next level of from where I'm sitting as well.
And look, I just want to pause there because I'm sure probably some people right now are just freaking out and thinking that there's no way I can possibly manage that. And it's true. It's very difficult for a lot of people. And for many, many years for me, I've got twins. We were renovating houses. I was working as a broker. I was trying to build out the stillness project. So I couldn't luxuriate in a 2 to 3 hour morning stint. I just worked a long time and very hard and had a strong intention and vision that that's what I wanted to manifest in my life. And that was something that I had to get very clear of, because I had manifest a very, very busy life with very, very little time. I would squeeze in, if I was lucky, 20 minutes of meditation morning and evening. And that was even a stretch sometimes. Whereas that took a long time for me to get clear about the life I want to manifest. So if you don't have much time at the moment, just a 15, 20-minute meditation is going to be a great starting point.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I was listening to this nutritionist the other day, and she said, look, ideally, you want to have lots of legumes and lots of protein, and ideally you want to pressure cook them all. But if you don't have time, just use the canned stuff. It's not that much worse off. So, it's a bit like the meditation. If you've got 5 minutes, just squeeze it in somewhere rather than try and create this, 1 hour perfect setting. What do they say? No meditation's a bad meditation. So the fact that you've done it is great. That's awesome, Tom. I love some of the work. I've only just started following you because I've been hearing about you so much. And so if people want to find out more about your teacher training program, perhaps some of your retreats and a bit more about you, what's the best platforms for us to find you on?
Yeah, they can find pretty much everything, including my film and book, the portal at tomcronin.com. So it's all kind of in one central hub, which will be very accessible: retreats, coaching, teacher training, and meditation workshops.
Oh, that's awesome. And we'll make sure that we have a little link of that when we publish the episode so that people can find you directly. So grateful, Tom. Thank you for making the time on being here today.
That's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me along today.
I'm Shivani Gupta, and you've been listening to the Ask Shivani podcast, where I got to ask some questions. Thank you so much for listening. Please follow Ask Shivani on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And if you haven't done so, please go to the Apple podcast and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. It would mean a lot. Thank you.